Hello there. Welcome back to the Fighting Pit patrons. This is the Knights of the Nerd Republic versus series. Y'all know what it is. You guys see the thing behind my head over here. We got Katarn versus Darth Malgus, but I'm not alone. I never am. I got my boy, my Fighting Pit roommate. We got Spence the Mando Simpson.
And welcome back, everyone, to this month's edition of the Knights of the Nerd Republic Patreon exclusive versus series. We've got a solid matchup for you guys today, and a character that I have had a major crush on for years and have been just waiting to do on this show. We've got Kyle Katarn.
I'm going to give you a second chance on that phrasing.
What did I say?
A character I've been waiting to do on this show.
Okay. A character I've been waiting to, have on the Versus series.
I was really hoping you were just going to leave it off at you know. I'm like, you're making it worse.
No, we've got Kyle Katarn versus my boy, my first love, Darth Maugus. And I had a lot of fun. I think this is the most fun I've had preparing for the show in a while. I didn't have to do much research at all because I love Malgus so much. But who knows if he'll come out on top? Who knows? Well, we will break it down, and by the end of this episode, we will know who the victor is. So for those of you who are familiar with the format, that's great. If you are not familiar with the format and this is your first Patreon exclusive versus matchup with us, thank you very much for subscribing. And I'm going to tell you basically how it's going to work. We've got 5 categories that we're going to evaluate for each combatant. They are going to be physical attributes, martial arts ability, force ability, their weapons and equipment, and finally their tactics and mindset. And after each of these, we're going to go through and give you some stats, give you some background on the character for each of these categories, and then give a soft verdict for each one before we go into the final stage of the show, which is going to be our theoretical fight breakdown, how we think this fight would most likely go down based on their tactics and their abilities, and their equipment and all of that good stuff. But before we do the theoretical fight breakdown, as always, we will pick one arena at random that we will choose right before that, in some cases, has a very substantial impact on the outcome of the fight. So it's never quite the same here in the fighting pit. And in some cases, even if we did the exact same matchup 2 or 3 different times, we might get different outcomes every time. So actually, now that I'm looking at our outline here, I can't tell which of the did we already take out the arenas that we did this season already?
Let me pull up the outline, but I'm pretty
sure
because
there's only 10 on there, and we had 14. So I think we've been removing them as we go, so that we
started with 12.
Oh, that's right, and we
had just had one.
So, yeah, that makes sense. So our lovely friends. We have 10 remaining arenas from the list that Jared and I concocted at the start of this year. And of those 10, we will pick one of the arenas when it's time for our theoretical fight breakdown. Jared, do you have anything else to add before we introduce the contenders?
No, except for the fact that I forgot one of our combatants actually fought in one of our arenas. I put that in there. I don't think just fighting in a forest on Alderaan is that much of an advantage.
No.
Yeah. I just remember that's a thing looking at the outline.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much to worry about. Alderaan doesn't present home field advantage really for either of them, because even when he was on Alderaan, Malgus was his first time with his boots on the soil. So
did slightly have a mountain dropped on him.
Yeah. Maybe he's got bad experiences that are just gonna bring out the worst in him during the fight, but probably not. We'll see.
All right, Spencer. Without any further ado, would you like to introduce us to the Dark Butcher?
I would love to. Born with the name Veridun on the planet Dormant Kos in 3701 BBY, Malgus was sent to the Sith Academy after murdering a slave on his adopted father's estate using the Force. Once arriving at the Academy, Malgus very quickly rose above his peers to become a Sith warrior and one of the most successful commanders of the Imperial military. Malgus and his master, Vindican, were the leading figures in the Sith reinvasion of their homeworld, Korriban, where Vindican and Malgus crossed blades with Satele Shan and her master, Jedi Battlemaster Kaios and Darach. After Vindican was mortally wounded by Darach, Malgus defeated and killed him before laying the killing strike on his own master and taking his place as Sith Lord. While on campaign on Geonosis, Malgus encountered a Twi'lek slave and took her as his own, and the two eventually fell in love and fought side by side through many of their campaigns. Malgus, I keep losing my spot every time I shift down. Malgus became one of the most feared Sith Lords in the Great Galactic War, invading the peaceful world of Alderaan, where he fought Satele Shan once again and was buried under a mountain of stone. After surviving this encounter, Malgus was forced to wear a respirator. Yet, this didn't stop him from launching a full-scale invasion of Coruscant and sacking the Jedi Temple, killing Ven Zalo and all of the temple inhabitants. Eventually killing his lover to preserve his power and influence, Malgus became disillusioned with the Dark Council, and sometime after the Third Galactic War, he went rogue until he was captured by Vitiate and placed in cryosleep as a trophy. His true fate is still unknown, but Malgus' legacy lived on as one of the most powerful Sith in galactic history in terms of strength, power, and influence, rivaled arguably by none but Vitiate until the emergence of Darth Sidious. Jared, would you please introduce his opponent?
Born to farmers on one of Sullus moons, Kyle Katarn joined the Imperial Naval Academy as a young man and began to discover his potential in the Force during a raid on a rebellion base. After a series of complicated events, Katarn learned his father was murdered by the Empire and promptly defected to the Rebel Alliance. As a rebel spy, Katarn was a part of several crucial operations, including an investigation into the Empire's ties with the Black Sun, destabilizing the Dark Trooper project, and the capture of the Death Star plans. Katarn would begin his Jedi journey properly after speaking with the Purge survivor Q Hran from beyond the grave about the Valley of the Jedi on Ruusan, and would come into conflict with the Inquisitor Jarek and his Dark Jedi cohorts. During this adventure, Kyle would be tempted by the dark side on a few occasions, including letting loose his fury, killing the fallen Jedi Maw. After defeating all of Jarek's servants, he dueled the Inquisitor in the Valley of the Jedi, and despite Jarek using the Force Nexus, Katarn struck him down. The event left Katarn fearful of his own darkness, and he began a period of reciprocal training with Mara Jade, where he very nearly killed her on Dromund Kaas, which was followed by Katarn losing 2 students of the dark side, making him finally cut himself off from the Force, becoming a mercenary with his longtime friend Jan Oros again. During this time away from the Order, Jan and Kyle became entangled with the Reborn Empire and a new legion of Dark Jedi led by the fallen student of Luke Skywalker, Dasan. During this conflict, Kyle retrieved his lightsaber from Luke in an effort to avenge Jan, who had seemingly been killed by the Reborn Empire. After eventually defeating Dasan and his cohorts, the plot was stopped by Kyle, and he rejoined the Jedi and took the rank of Master and trained Jaden Korr and Rosh Pennon, served in the Vong War, the Second Galactic Civil War, was nearly killed by Darth Kaitis, and aided in the battle against Abeloth.
Yes, 2 very seasoned warriors in their time.
They both got up to some stuff.
So, without further ado, since we have introduced our contenders, Jared, would you please give us Kyle Katarn's physical attribute stats?
Absolutely. Kyle Katarn clocks in about an inch shorter than I am. He's clocking at 5'9", has a slender but well-rounded build. Even though he's not exactly imposing, he's able to keep up with power fighters like Dasan, who's just a giant fucking lizard. He has Imperial training. You know, he went through Imperial boot camp, so we do know he is very physically able. He has survived near-death injuries and lightsaber wounds. He's been shot at. He's been blown up. He was run through by Darth Kaitis and still was able to get back up from that. He's a master of force-based physical augmentation. We were using him at the time that he's 67 years old because it's pretty much when his peak in the force was. And again, despite his age and rather not notable build, he is still a very well-rounded athlete.
That he is.
And his brick shithouse of an opponent.
So, Darth Malgus is a human male, clocking in at 7 feet tall. He looks a lot shorter on camera. If you watch the cinematics from the Old Republic, he doesn't look that tall, but I guess he is. And this guy is an absolute physical tank. All right. He is a tank. He is big, he is bulky, and he can take blows. In the Old Republic cinematics during the Battle of Alderaan, he tanked an RPG blast and then a point blank grenade blast from the clone trooper that I never know his name, or he's not a clone, but the Republic trooper, I can never remember that guy's name.
Jace Malcolm, I believe, is his name.
Right. Maugus is not notably fast on foot, but he's quicker than he looks, and he's big and he is scary. He was able to tank force lightning blasts and attacks and fight back against force push blasts. So he is strong. Like, he can power through a sustained force push, which I guess would be like a very strong wind. And it took Satele Shan like one last mega force push to finally put him on his back and bury him under a mountain of rock. So, and then he survived that experience, by the way, and went on to mess up some more stuff for the Republic and for the Jedi. This is an interesting case because Malgus has absolutely zero sick flow. Not only does he not have sick flow, he has no flow. He is one bald son of a gun, but he makes it look good somehow. So those are Maugus's physical attributes, and I think that this. Speaking of age, I honestly have no idea how old this guy is. He seems to be around forever, but I'd say when he is at his highest force ability, he is somewhere in the ballpark of 40 or 50, at least relatively. Again, I can never tell if him saying, for 300 years we prepared and grew stronger. I'm like, are you talking about like the Sith in general or just you and your little cohort?
I believe he's referring to just the Sith.
Right. So yeah, he's somewhere in the ballpark of 40 to 50 at his best. And so that's where we will take him for now. I personally think that this is an open and shut case for physical attributes because Kyle's good, but Malgus is a monster.
Malgus has no flow. Kyle has one of the sickest beards in all of Star Wars.
That's for style points. That doesn't matter, though. We just give that for style points.
Yeah. All joking aside, this is Malgus
by a mile. He is big and scary and could probably.
I don't think we've had a match up to this point where height was even that much of a point of contention.
Oh no!
Holy shit!
5'9". Even a match between like an average, Jedi or Sith who clocks in at what, like 6'2". Like even a difference between 5'9" and 6'2" would be significant. But my guy is 7 feet tall. He's big.
That's rough. I'm so sorry, Kyle.
Off to a wonderful start for Kyle. But if it were that easy, we would just call the match right now. There's more to get into.
Malgus is imposing, and it does not bode well for Kyle. I don't think this is a matchup he would pick for himself.
Oh no!
However, we have seen him take on very imposing threats. We've seen him deal with the Dark Troopers. We've seen him take on people wearing Cortosis armor. We've seen him fight in a head-on lightsaber duel with Dasan. Just because you're bigger or tougher than Kyle does not mean that Kyle cannot cut you down. But if this were a boxing match, my money's on Malgus.
my house is on Malgus. I would put my dwelling up on that fight. So moving right along to our next category, martial arts ability. Jared, tell us about our friend Kyle.
Kyle Katarn up top was the Jedi Battle Master of Luke Skywalker's New Jedi Order. He was a master of the Three Rings of Defense, which was a new lightsaber martial art developed by the New Jedi Order. In essence, it was kind of an advanced version of Shicho. It's kind of like Shicho Plus. A lot of it is based around the way that Luke attempted to emulate Darth Vader's fighting style. So it has 3 modes. It has like a medium speed, strong style, and fast style. It lends itself to the tutorial type stuff of Shicho, while also being based around like, okay, we're coming out, we're going all in, or a kind of medium approach, kind of testing the waters, or a very well withdrawn, in the same way that Vader would be very protective of the control panel, that kind of defense. But like I said, he was a master of the 3 Rings of Defense. He has classical sword training that he got in the Imperial Navy. He uses Ataro techniques very prevalently. He is an acrobat. He does like to flip around, does like to move around. He implements physical-based attacks. He implements force attacks. As a battle master, obviously, he has skill and mastery in all 7 forms of lightsaber combat. However, it seems as though Gemso and Shicho are the most prevalent in his style, between strong style already kind of biting a little bit of Gemso off. That's not much of a surprise either. He moves when he fights. And when I say that, it's kind of like a given. Like, of course he moves when he fights. Duh. His range of motion moves with his sword. If he's moving forward, he's more often than not, he is striking down at you while he is moving forward. He is swinging at your sides if he's moving side to side. And if he's moving back, he's probably swinging his lightsaber up at you like an uppercut. Which in some ways makes him a unique fighter. Most fighters kind of like plant and then start swinging, or they're just swinging rapidly as they're moving. Kyle is kind of a very 3-dimensional or 360-degree fighter in that way. He's very good with blade binding techniques. He's been known to disarm opponents. Very skilled with force integration of his abilities. He held his own as a sparring partner in Mara Jade. One of the Emperor's most powerful servants, probably directly under Darth Vader in terms of power. He struggles against people who just kind of like throw their full weight at him. Kyle is, we'll talk about this more when we are comparing them, but Kyle is very good in like the middle range of fighter, not necessarily in terms of skill, but in terms of approach. So like, I'd say about half, like if you split it up into like quartiles and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, he's going to do really well against 2 and 3. The far left and right gradients of very deceptive in combat and likes to piss around and, very, very, very sneaky and elusive, and brute force, brute force, brute force, brute force. These 2 ends of the spectrum are things that he struggles with. But in the middle, when you're not quite sold on either side, or you lean a certain way, but you're not like all the way in, that's where Kyle really, really excels with somebody who is a little deceptive, a little direct, which is most fighters. Notable kills, feats, and victories. He, like I said, defeated Inquisitor Jarek and his Dark Jedi cohorts very, very early in his Jedi career. He defeated Dasan, his apprentice Tavion Aximus, and held his own against Darth Kaitis. He's managed to defeat very heavily armored foes. Like I said, the Dark Troopers, whom in their Legends counterparts were made out of cortosis. And he has countless battlefield kills. And even though this is more of a force feat and a little up in the air with how we talk about it, because again, I don't like having to talk about Abeloth, he did aid in the defeat of Abeloth. Spencer, Lord Malgus.
Yes. Okay. So Maugus, as far as the martial arts ability goes, is pretty straightforward. Like Maugus's style in general is bread and butter. You know, he's steak and potatoes. He's bread and butter. He sticks with the basics, and he is really, really good at it. Um, so he is what I would assume to be. He is a gemso specialist. There's no clear description that I could find in my supplementary research for this episode that says whether or not he specializes in a specific form. But based on his aggressive style and his heavy blows, I assume that he is a Gemso or Gemso variant user. He's very aggressive and he's very wild with his strikes, but I don't think that he moves in a way that suggests Form 7. I think that that Gemso is the best, most accurate, probably way that we can categorize his lightsaber combat techniques. That being said, he has displayed skill with Jar Kai, having quite literally taken his master's lightsaber out of his firm clutches during the reinvasion of Korriban to go blow to blow in a Jar Kai versus Jar Kai match with Kaio Sendarach, which he eventually won after wearing down an already exhausted Kaio Sendarach and overpowering him like that. He is a power fighter, but he's very fast and he's agile. He likes to use force augmented jumps in his combat to close the distance between him and his enemies. Also, he employs some force speed, but it's not like the really noticeable force speed. It's more it's not him just like darting around the room like Dashel Robert Parr. It's like him more often using it to increase the speed of his saber strikes and close the distance. Quit chortling over there.
Oh, so specific. Out of every speedster. Dash and his full name. Continue.
Oh yeah. Well, I felt like Dash was, he could be any Dash. I had to very specifically call him out. Dash Rendar, yeah. So some of Maugus's notable kills, victories, and feats. He killed Battle Master Kaio Sendarach. He killed Ven Zalo during his temple excursion. And he is, I would argue this point, but Ven Zalo is considered his most prestigious Jedi kill. I personally think that Kaio Sendarach was the more dangerous opponent for Maugus. And if you had a fresh Kaio Sendarach going blow to blow with Maugus, it might have ended differently for Maugus whenever they crossed blades. However, he also killed his Sith rival, Lord Adras, in a duel to the death. Along with, just like Kyle, he has his battlefield kill count is too great and too difficult to estimate, but countless numbers. Also, a notable feat, he crashed a shuttle of acolytes into the Jedi effing temple and then killed everyone. That is something that is not done in a void. This was part of a full-scale invasion, and he just decided, you know what, we're gonna put a cherry on top, and we're gonna crash a shuttle into the temple, and I'm gonna walk right up to the front door and kill everyone inside. But still an impressive feat. He and his acolytes wiped out the entire temple, and he himself slayed some of their most prestigious defenders. This is a tough one to call, I think, because they are alike in a lot of ways. But I want to say that because Kyle Katarn does not do as well against power fighters or really, how did you put it? Did you say devious fighters?
Yeah, I agree on that front that this is Malgus is somebody who does spell trouble for Kyle.
Mhm.
However, if we're looking at this on a technical level, I think Kyle's a superior fighter.
I think Kyle. I think that Kyle can outfence him. Um, but Malgus will definitely have the ability to overpower him, and it's kind of, if you ignore the tensing or the tensing the fencing technicality of it, Malgus spells a lot of trouble for Kylo because he's a power fighter, but he also is kind of devious in the way he fight. We see that with his duel with Venzalo in the temple, where Venzalo like hits him in the respirator with the hilt of his lightsaber, and he pretends to stagger more than he needs to in order to draw him in, and then a quick spin and he's gone. So it's difficult to say because Kyle does so well with the in between. Like, he doesn't do well against really heavy power fighters or against the especially devious, but he does well with people who have a little bit of both. But like, what do you do with a fighter that is both exceptionally devious and exceptionally powerful?
I think that I think that Kyle's most valuable weapon here is his ability to is his speed and the way that he moves around. I think that is something that's going to be really problematic for Malgus. I think that I think because he's able to outpace Malgus. Granted, again we see Satil Shan.
Yeah.
She's within an inch of her life fighting.
Yeah, she's a speed fighter, and he puts her like squarely on her back foot and is almost able to run her through and end the fight if it weren't for 2 minutes. But
that said, what I think Kyle has here is a good mix of being able to outpace Malgus while meeting his assault head on. And I think and again, we see that Kyle is he's proven to be able to handle a speed fight or a power fighter like Dasan because he can fight a giant Sith lizard. Again, for those of you who aren't familiar with Dasan, think Suicide Squad Killer Croc. Like, not a giant crocodile man, but a big crocodile man. Give him a lightsaber and like a very strong connection to the dark side. That's Dasan. Because Kyle's able to keep up with him and weather his assault, I think mixing that with his ability to maneuver around Malgus gives Kyle either the ability to call this a draw or a very slim edge.
I think the ability for Kyle to come close to matching Malgus's physical strength blow for blow is the only thing that helps him stand a chance, because Malgus went up against Satil Shan twice, and she is not a power fighter. She is very acrobatic. She is very speedy, and we see Malgus like he's either right there with her or he's one step ahead most of the time. Like, if she tries to do a little flippy maneuver to get on the other side of him, he cuts her lightsaber in half before her feet hit the ground, and she's not a power fighter. And since Kyle has more strength in him, he can't like completely match Malgus blow for blow, but he can at least push back. And in my opinion, that's the only thing that saves this from being a deciding edge. I'm inclined to call it a draw. I think both of their strengths against each other present an equal threat to the other, in my opinion. We can give the edge to Kyle, but again, it would be a slim one.
Okay, we can call it a draw then, because I do think Kyle is the superior duelist, but I don't disagree with you that these are one of those situations where technique only gets you so far in a fight. Um, I think we brought this up before where, most people on a technical level are better duelists than Darth Sidious. That does not change the fact that he's a blur.
Mm.
And, all the technique in the world doesn't change the fact that his lightsaber is through your throat before you turned yours on.
Yeah.
So, I'd
And
call it a draw then, yeah.
yeah. And though Malgus is there are a lot of people who have more skill on a technical level. His body count speaks for itself. Like, he has fought Jedi and fellow Sith alike, and Venzalo and Kaio Sendarach on paper should have both killed him, but he came out on top in both cases. So there's something more than just technique that goes into this fight, and because of that, they balance out from technique to like overall kill ability. So we can call that a contentious draw, and move right along. Do you want to go first, buddy?
Yeah, sure. So Kyle Katarn's force abilities, again, he is, I use the term master tier. Yes, he is like by rank a Jedi master, but it's for some type of like grading scale or gradient. Kyle is a high-end force user. You get ready for some gray Jedi cringe. There's a legitimate conversation to be had around Kyle. He does use a mix of both dark side and light side abilities. He is capable of using force heal on himself. He is capable of more common light side abilities, but he's also capable of like lifting somebody up by their throat and crushing their windpipe and casting lightning out of his fingertips. He has manhandled fellow force users with telekinesis on multiple occasions, even force adepts like a Tavion Aximus. He loves throwing his lightsaber. It like in combat will just kind of sneak that into his lightsaber sequences, which is a very, very impressive utilization of that ability. He does like to implement force lightning into his attacks because it's a power he has at his disposal, and he is capable of using it to devastating degrees. He was capable of using the ability known as the Spear of Midnight Black. However, I would describe it as like Force Wound on steroids. He did this while he was being powered by the Valley of the Jedi. So do with that what you will. I don't think that's an ability he has on his person at all times. I don't think that's an ability he could call to him, like, again, in the streets of Mos Eisley. I don't think that's a thing he could do. But the fact that early into his Jedi path, again, with an amp, he was able to call on that ability. Those are one of those, like, yes, you could only do it because of X, but the fact that you could do it, period,
at all,
is impressive. And he was scarred by his interactions with the dark side. It did affect his connection to the Force. He has been able to cut himself off from the Force, but also reintegrate with it. So, yeah, that's Kyle.
An impressive arsenal for Kyle. So I always, like I said, I always believed Malgus to be a very bread and butter kind of combatant, both with his lightsaber and with the Force. The kind of guy that really only uses Force lightning, Force choke, Force push, telekinesis, but he uses them all really, really well. And that's still true. But he's got a wider range of Force abilities than I had previously thought. He has a very powerful arsenal of telekinesis, of Force push. He is able to ragdoll multiple opponents at once. Force lightning. He killed 3 Jedi with 1 blast during the sacking of the Jedi Temple, and he absorbed and redirected lightning during his duel with his rival, Lord Adras. And his Force lightning is so powerful and concentrated at times that he is able to produce a Force maelstrom, which is absolutely deadly. He has ability with 2 to Menace. He's been able to absorb blaster bolts and lightning in his hand and either redirect it or simply dissipate the energy. He has force speed, but again, like not in like a I'm gonna run 1,000 miles an hour for a little while kind of way, but in his ability to close short distances very quickly. He has a very precise and deadly saber throw. One of my favorite scenes from him is whenever he's walking up to the Jedi Temple in the cinematics, and he's approached by a group of like 9 civilian temple guards with like blasters, and they kind of look like Hoth rebel soldiers. And he like walks up to them and he's like, force push you 3 into a wall, force push you 3 into a wall, lightsaber throw the other 3, and then he like flips it away, and it's over in like 5 seconds. I just think that's really cool. He's a badass. But he also has a powerful force choke and the ability to cloak his presence with the force. Not only that, but he is able to detect those who attempt to cloak their force signature from him as well. So he has the ability to conceal and also super perceive those who are trying to use that same ability against him. Again, some of these, like Force Cloak, it's not going to be especially useful during combat, but his Force ability range, like I said, was a lot wider than I first thought. But he still favors his core 3 or 4. The Force Push, the Force Choke, the Force Lightning, and Telekinesis. But he does a lot of saber throwing as well. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah. So those are the basics of Malgus. Well, actually, that's everything. But the basics for him again are his bread and butter go-to, and they're not especially sophisticated, but man, are they powerful. So, Jared, what are your thoughts on how Force ability is going to shake out?
I think Darth Malgus is incredibly powerful and incredibly skilled, but Kyle's skill set is way more diverse. And because Kyle has a really good ability, has a very clear skill in all branches of Force use. Like, there's a lot of alter, there's a lot of there's a little bit of everything here, from everything from Force Heal to Dark Rage. Kyle is very, very, very skilled with all of it. I also think that while I don't see Kyle, lifting up and force choking Malgus, I am inclined to say that I think Kyle could probably mollywop Malgus with a good force push. Again, it's kind of like that weird rule of if you get picked up, you're in deep shit.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get hit with a force push, keep your guard up. I do think he can score some telekinetic attacks on Malgus. I don't know if he would be able to like breach him on a telepathic level. I would probably say they're roughly equals in lightning. So both of them can fry the other one extra crispy. But at the end of the day, I feel like Kyle has a more diverse palette of abilities and uses them more imaginatively as well.
Okay. I was inclined, I hate draws, but sometimes you can't avoid it. I was inclined to call this one a draw as well, because like you said, where Malgus lacks in his, diversity of portfolio, I think he more than makes up for it with sheer strength and power. And I don't know much about Malgus's force barrier. A lot of what we see him tank when it comes to force ability comes from his physical dimension, not necessarily his force dimension. Like, his physical body is just so immense and strong that he can tank force lightning and force pushes and stuff like that, but not necessarily coming from a strong force barrier. I think, I want to say that Malgus's ability to land a really solid force push on Kyle is about the same as Kyle's ability to do so on Malgus. But for the sake of combative usefulness, like I said, Malgus has got 3 or 4 that he goes to, and I think if Kyle is smart enough to employ his wider range of skill, like his wider skill set in the actual fight, then that would give him the edge. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is an edge for Kyle, but not a substantial one. It's like, it's not a draw or slim edge. It's not even like a slim edge. It's like we can comfortably give it to Kyle, but it's like by no means a blowout. It's going to be a grudge match. Yeah. It's going to be the grudge match of the century between these two.
100% agree. There's no blowout here.
No,
by a long shot. This is a comfortable edge due to a mix of power and diversity, but there is still there's no like, clearly Kyle Katarn is the winner, or
no, Kyle has every reason to be afraid of what Malgus can do with the Force, and this isn't a given for him. But he definitely has the ability to make it his own. So, moving to our penultimate category, weapons and equipment. Jared, take us away.
Kyle has carried a series of lightsabers over the course of his career. However, once he was finally truly rooted within the Jedi Order and became a master and a member of the Council, he used a standard lightsaber with a slightly oversized hilt. It's a little bit longer than most other hilts, extra hand grip. Other than that, nothing special with a blue blade. He carries a Briar blaster pistol, which is meant for short range combat, but can, when using excess gas and energy, fire off charged bolts. And he normally has at least one thermal detonator on hand.
That basically is Kyle Katarn in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's all right there. Jedi weapon with a little bit of extra sauce on the side because he's different, and then a gun and a bomb.
So his opponent, Darth Malgus, is as scarily looking as he is ability-wise. He's got his red Sith lightsaber with completely unnecessary but awesome blades on the side, just in case you got a little bit too close and he decided to have fun with you. He could slice you open without even using the lightsaber. It's crazy. He's also got Sith battle armor that matches his physical strength and imposition. And his one weakness physiologically is his respirator that he was forced to use ever since the Battle of Alderaan, when he absorbed the blast of an RPG and a hand grenade and was buried under a mountain. It is a liability for him, but he has been known to go without it for moderate periods of time. It's something that he will eventually need, but if we are going off the basis that like a very intense lightsaber duel would last, say, an hour, he could very easily, like, what's the word I'm looking for? He could make it through the match without like a respirator, but he would need to get it pretty soon after that.
At the very, if you can take out that respirator, you've cut Malgus's effectiveness in half, though. Like, I think at that point, like, you run into a situation where he is going to be struggling to breathe, and I wouldn't say this is a dangerous situation for Vader.
Oh, no.
Because where the Vader, like, you take out that chest panel, at this point he is putting all of his focus in the Force on not suffocating.
Yeah.
With Malgus, he's slowly, and I won't say slowly, but like he is going to be gradually falling into what could be described as the worst asthma attack ever. Where he's going to lose the ability to breathe, and is going to then like focus on either ending the fight or sustaining himself. At which point, I feel like he can start burning the candle at both ends. But I don't think like taking out the respirator is not going to mean he immediately starts choking to death. But you've changed the nature of the fight if you can bust the respirator.
Yes. And I think it's more of a liability for Malgus than it is for Vader, because he is careless with it sometimes. Like the fact that Venzalo, even though Malgus let him do it, the fact that Venzalo ever landed even a hilt blow on that respirator is a show of not carelessness, but kind of throwing caution to the wind for the sake of winning the fight. And in the case of
it just falls over his face. So like if you're scoring a hit to that respirator, there's a good chance you also just hit his head in general.
Yeah. Dang it, what was that? Oh, I think in the case of Venzalo, it was a calculated and it was a worthwhile risk, because he was able to get Venzalo to overextend, and that was what got him run through from Malgus's monstrous blade. I have a hard time believing that Kyle Katarn would make a similarly, overextending attack directly after something like that. We'll see. I mean, I think for Malgus, it's a calculated risk if Malgus ever decides to let you close to that respirator. But if he does so, it's in the knowledge that this fight is going to end very soon afterward. And if he can make that happen, and he knows if he knows he can make that happen, then he might let you get close enough to it to like think that you're on the top, and then turn it around on you, be like, haha, gotcha. But it would be a lot more difficult for Malgus to identify the weak spot in Kyle's attacking and, taking out the respirator and his follow-up. I think Malgus would have a lot more difficult a time recognizing like he's gonna overextend at this exact moment, and that's when I pull a little spinny spin and then he's done. That being said, in the end, the benefits of making that kind of a risky call are not really there. And so if anything, this respirator is a liability, but one that it's not likely will be exploited, because Malgus really only let anyone close to it as a calculated risk to close the distance and make the kill. But I think Malgus is going to recognize he's dealing with someone that is not going to fall for that, and that is not going to overextend in the same way that Venzalo did. And because of that, I don't think he's going to let anyone get close, but we'll see.
I will say with the respirator issue, I do think this kind of bleeds into tactics and mindset. I do think Kyle would go for it, but his version of like a follow-up attack on the respirator is not being that close to Malgus with his lightsaber. He's going to attack it with the Force. He's going to try to just electrocute Malgus in the face with lightning, or shoot him, or throw a thermal detonator at him. Like, I think Kyle is more likely to definitely attempt to attack it, but because, and this is not a common thing with Star Wars versus stuff, he's a good ranged fighter. He can shoot at you. He can cast lightning at you. He can very, 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 very accurately throw his lightsaber at you. These are all things that Kyle's very good at keeping his distance when he wants to. And
by that same token, though, there are things that Malgus is very familiar with and has no problems dealing with effortlessly.
Yes. I also think that there are things that he's not used to dealing with in the context of a lightsaber duel. And that I think if Malgus gets whipped up into that like tunnel vision frenzy, that has almost gotten him killed a couple times. that, he gets so focused on fighting Satele Shan that, like, he's not paying attention to the fact that Jace Malcolm is about to bum rush him. Like, he gets got a few times because he kind of gets a little too in the zone. And I think that if he gets so focused on, like, taking on a Jedi, he's going to be hammering and hammering and hammering. And before you know it, boom, there's a blaster bolt in that respirator. Or that Kyle, being the kind of swarm style fighter, let off a couple rounds with the Briar, swing his lightsaber, hit him with lightning, and then drop the thermal detonator on him and jump the hell away. That, again, is a little bit in tactics and mindset. Kyle is crafty. He's not a Maul assassin type who will cheat or fight dirty. But I compare it to, like, when Obi-Wan kneecaps Savage Opress, he wasn't fighting dirty necessarily, but he saw an opening and he took it. That's that in essence is how Kyle fights. That, like, he's not going to fight dirty to exploit your weakness, but when he sees it, he's going for it. And I think his ability as a ranged fighter makes the respirator a little bit more dangerous in Kyle's hands. That he does have, by virtue of his equipment and skill set, it gives him more avenues than the average Jedi would have fighting Malgus. That said, I'm inclined to give Malgus the edge as far as weapons and equipment goes, because we've seen his armor and body handle this kind of punishment. But with that respirator, I don't think he can take a grenade to the face again. I don't think that's a thing that he can do twice.
Thrice.
Oh, yeah, thrice. Like, I'm talking like, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, like the scene where the pumpkin bomb goes off in Peter's face. I don't think Malgus can do that a second time. Now that respirator's on there, I think that happens. That thing is absolutely trashed. And
here's what I'll say, though. I think the only reason that Malcolm was able to get that detonator off on Malgus when he did was because Malgus was concerned with the most dangerous fighter on the battlefield. And I don't think he expected a, like, regular Republic trooper to try to come at him, let alone with nothing in his hands. And then, like, oh, surprise. And it did as much damage to Malcolm as it did to Malgus. And I don't, like, Kyle doesn't have the kind of armor to take that kind of a blast. And the only way that this is my opinion, the only way that you're going to do damage to Malgus with a thermal detonator is if it is in your hand and you are right next to him. Like, there's no way that you can throw that without him being like, goodbye, nice try. There's no way that you can get it close to him, like rolling it on the ground, unless you, like, somehow manage to seriously distract him and he doesn't notice it's there, but that's very unlikely. Like, the thermal detonator is only as useful, in my opinion, as, like, a last ditch, if I'm going, you're going with me effort, because I don't see Kyle being able to make that useful from a distance. At best, a distraction. At worst, a waste of time. And, also, I will present my dissenting opinion that I still don't think the respirator is as much of a physiological liability as you say it is. Like, it will have an effect on him eventually, but it's not like an immediate will cut his ability in half. It will, I think in the end, it will cut his overall stamina by like a third or a quarter. But, like, in terms of performance, I don't think he's going to be, like, heaving for very long, And I think we're beating the horse while he's down at this point, to mix metaphors. But we can give an edge to
Malgus
Malgus
definitely gets the edge.
on weapons and equipment.
Just as we know his armor can take
Yeah.
a blaster shot, or
The only thing, we can move on. We've said all that needs to be said, I think. So for our ultimate category, Jared.
As far as tactics and mindset goes for Kyle Katarn, like I was saying earlier, he's crafty but not exactly deceptive. He will find ways to get around you and kind of, hoodwink you, but he's also not, he's not. It's weird. I want to avoid doing the whole "he's this but he isn't really" type verbiage, because that annoys the piss out of me. But that's kind of the situation, that like there comes a certain point where he is too honorable to be deceptive. But there is a distinct craftiness to his fighting style and his tactical mindset, that he's okay with fighting dirty, but to an honorable degree. Like to the point where like you look at him and go, okay, you got me.
Yeah.
But he's not much beyond that.
Like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan pulls tricks. Obi-Wan lies to you, but like in a crafty way. Like the kneecap, like him challenging the Zygerian slave dealer to a duel, and like getting him to reveal his whole evil plan with his comm on, So by the time he's done, they've got all the bombs disarmed. Like that's crafty, but that's not. It's like not devious in nature.
Yeah. Stuff like that. Or I would even say, I think Kyle would do something like what Obi-Wan does to Maul in Rebels, where he's like, I'm going to telegraph to you exactly what you want to see, because I know what you're going to do if you, see me, like cue the Sam Witwer clip of like coming up here into the Qui-Gon, Ataru ready stance. So, yeah, that's Kyle. He also likes to use all of his toys.
What's the point in having fun toys if you can't use them?
Listen, sometimes when you're a Jedi and you have the motherfucking thing on you, sometimes you got to use the Force and let that blower blow. Sometimes,
chip him and then throw the blower in his lap.
you got to chip a Sith Lord and then put the blower in his lap.
So Malgus's tactics and ability, for as big and as scary and as forceful as he is very thoughtful and he's very smart, I think. He uses his rage and his brute strength to overwhelm, but he's still a very focused duelist. Sometimes too much, like in the case of him not seeing Trooper Malcolm coming at him with a hand grenade, but he's focused. He is not easily distracted until he feels invincible. And I think from the start of this fight, he's going to notice that Kyle Katarn is a serious threat and he can't afford to get cocky. I think the only times, again, when Malgus has like taken a serious hit is whenever he's just a little bit too pleased with himself. When he's not seriously challenged, or at least he doesn't think he is, then he like starts getting a little bit careless. Like the RPG, like there was no Jedi on the battlefield at the time whenever he got RPG'd from Trooper Malcolm. And it was that feeling of like, I am the most powerful person on this battlefield, that ended up with him getting a face full of smoke and shrapnel. But he kept fighting, and sometimes that cockiness is like very good for him. Sometimes it really works, like with Venzalo, like with Kaio Sendarach. Sometimes it really works for him. It's dangerous. It's more dangerous in this situation, I think, for him to get cocky. But that being said, he will eliminate anything that stands in his way of power, as we saw with him basically realizing that the only thing holding him back in terms of his force ability was his slave/lover, Aline. And so he killed her with his own hand. So even the people that he considers closest to him, he will eliminate in order to be the top dog. And as we mentioned before, he is kind of a devious fighter, and he will draw you in if he knows you're going to take the bait. We don't really see him do that in any instances where you don't take the bait. But he really likes putting saber and force combos together, and following up blocks with force blasts and ragdolling people across the room. So that's his basic mindset. I want to say that Kyle will get the edge here. You can feel free to debate that opinion. But I want to say that Kyle gets it because I think his cockiness is his biggest liability. Malgus's, that is. And unless he realizes very quickly into this fight that he has met probably the closest thing to his match in his lifetime, unless he realizes that early on and really is a focused and a smart fighter like I know he's capable of being, then he's going to be in serious trouble from the start. What do you think?
I think that Malgus's arrogance is going to put him at a deficit at the beginning of this fight, because he's going to see this 5'9", 60-year-old man and go, who the fuck is this guy? Not realizing that Kyle Katarn is probably like the only people who outclass Kyle Katarn in terms of like skill and power in his era are fucking Skywalkers. Like, in no particular order, it's Luke, Jason, and Jaina. One of whom had to resort to some really, really, really tricky, shitty tactics. Which I will say, and I will, the match of draws, I'm kind of okay with the whole stat sheet ends up being a draw. I just realized, like, if it's either, that's funny. Anyway, what, like, the kind of craftiness and like deviousness that Malgus likes to employ is the kind of thing that almost got Kyle killed. Because in his fight against Darth Kaitis, what Darth Kaitis did was there was a lull in the combat. Kyle saw Kaitis reach out with his hand, and the way that Kaitis is holding his hand, Kyle thought he was about to get force pushed. So he kind of, focused his TK barrier outward so that he could absorb the push. And again, the fact that Kyle could just straight up, in theory, tank a force push from Darth friggin' Kaitis, whatever. But he braced for the force push, but what he did not realize was that Jason was force pulling a speeder into Kyle's back. Hit him in the back, and the forward momentum from the speeder hitting him lanced Kyle onto Darth Kaitis' lightsaber blade. And he ran him through. And had it not been for the Jedi strike team that came with Kyle, he would have died from that wound. He still almost died from that wound. Now, granted, you also have him having to be extracted from the battlefield, and the fact that he got drugged through like some nasty-ass pipes on Coruscant, and he also got that wound infected, doesn't help. But he still got stabbed in the chest because of like a really, really, really dirty move. Now factor in the fact that even though he did eventually beat Dasan, he was outfenced by Dasan because of his power, and he did eventually get picked up by Dasan through the Force. I will give Kyle getting his barrier broken by Dasan a pass because this was right after he reopened himself to the Force. So I think that's a factor. So at the end of the day, while Malgus's deviousness is a threat for Kyle, I do think Malgus is going to underestimate him from the outset, and Kyle's going to be able to come in swinging, and Malgus very quickly is going to go, oh, you might be one of the greatest swordsmen to ever live, and you're obscenely powerful. Shit. At which point, I think that's when he starts fighting dirty. Is when he goes, oh, hashtag short king over here is about to cut my fucking head off. So I would say I give tactics and mindset to Kyle, but because of Malgus's mindset, it kind of ends up backfiring a little bit, in my opinion. But all in all, I do think it goes to Kyle.
I agree, which overall makes our category by category edges offset. So I will review once more before we move into our fight breakdown. So Malgus takes physical attributes. Martial arts is a draw. Kyle takes force ability. Malgus takes weapons and equipment, and Kyle takes tactics and mindset. So it's 2-2 and a draw. So with that, unless we have anything further to discuss, we can choose a number between 1 and 10 to determine our arena. All right. Watch this.
Case.
What?
Nice phone case.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Siri. Pick a number between 1 and 10.
A random number between 1 and 10 is 6.
And how does this happen? How does this happen? Do we want a mulligan or do we care?
Let's do a different one.
All right. Just for reference, number 6, this always seems to happen to us. The one arena that we're like, I hope it's not this, just for the sake of the fight. It always ends up being number 6 on our list was the Forest of Alderaan. And then in parentheses, we have Maugus trailer. So that might be a little biased. Hey, Siri.
We'll sus.
Pick a number between 1 and 10.
A random number between 1 and 10 is 8.
All right. So the arena for this month's match will be the Masasi Temples on Yavin 4. Well, one of them, really. The idea for our visual for how this arena would look is it would kind of be like the open space in the center, like the hangar bay that you see in episode 4, as well as moving out into the jungle, like the animated micro series duel between Anakin and Asajj Ventress. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say that this is kind of like, if you think in terms of Battlefront 2, either 2005 or 2017, it's literally that space. It's like the hangar, the open hangar, and
then the
maybe the fight goes into the
line.
jungle, but it's probably going to be limited to like the space outside of the hangar where there's some, one-off X-Wings and whatnot parked around. I will say we did kind of end up going from a stage or an arena. I've been playing too much Smash. We did kind of go from one arena to another one where somebody has an advantage because Kyle is familiar with this space. This is where the Jedi Temple is for him. Granted, we're doing this at the time of the Battle of Yavin, so it's just like, it's still a Force Nexus, which is going to be in some ways an amp for both of them. I wouldn't say that this is a Nexus in the Force that would like give Kyle the ability to use Spear of Midnight Black again.
Right.
This is the Valley of the Jedi. This isn't Rusan. It's still going to affect everybody's power thresholds. Oh, this is interesting. I
don't have a problem with using it at this
no,
point.
I
We've
don't have a
tried
problem
to.
with trying to visualize it is all. They're both going to be blowing shit up.
Yeah.
There's at least 2 or 3 X-wings that just get
That just get
obliterated.
Oh yeah.
By virtue of somebody trying to pick one up or somebody getting thrown into one. I will say this is the kind of space that makes that thermal detonator count, though.
Only if you can attach it to something bigger.
Yeah, which Kyle liking to do like backflips and shit and ducking and rolling as much as he does. If Malgus is coming at him full tilt, that gives him a chance to like slap it onto an X-wing and jump the hell out of the way. And I think that's the kind of trap Malgus would fall into. I think Malgus would take that bait.
But I mean, he's still fast though. He might take the bait, but I don't know. I think he would follow Kyle. Like if he did like a flip out of the way, Malgus would be right there with him when he lands. I don't think he'd be focused on what's behind Kyle. And I don't know. I really have a hard time thinking that the usefulness of the thermal detonator is just that useful. Like I really don't think that
Kyle at some point is going to just try to blow up Malgus.
I think he'll try, but I just have a hard time believing that it'll work.
So even if it doesn't work, then again it continues to change the battlefield. I think in an open space like this, Kyle is really, really at an advantage as far as like sword combat goes. Because this is kind of where he shines, is the ability to just really be ripping and roaring and flipping and moving around.
True, but Malgus is also if he feels overwhelmed in a fencing degree, then that's when he employs like a block and then underhanded force push that is either going to create enough space for him to momentarily take an aggressive advantage, which is going to be bad for Kyle if he just really starts like hammering away at him, or it will move the battle to a new space that is going to be less advantageous for Kyle, like into the jungle or into the hangar. Like this is maybe the hardest match that I've ever had to call.
I agree.
Because it's just like it's so well, first of all, I love Malgus. And like secretly I hope he wins. I'm gonna be objective about it, of course. But also it's like they're both just so powerful. Like at what point do they just like look at each other and they're like, we done? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. We're done. All right. Yeah, we'll see you later. That was a nice little sparring match we just had. Like it'll be really difficult to make a killing blow for either of them. Like this is either a fight that goes on indefinitely or it's a fight that they just like give up.
I hate to say it though. I do think eventually Malgus is going to be able to get something up on Kyle. I do think eventually he'll be able to beat him.
I think I'm envisioning in this portion of the battle, or like whenever Malgus gets annoyed enough at the fact that he's not getting anywhere in the fencing realm, that's where I like see kind of like the ending stage of the Kaio Sendirach duel, where he's just like, all right, enough of this garbage, and I'm going to hammer away at you as heavily and as hard as I can, and I'm not going to stop hitting you hard and hitting you fast until I disarm you or I disembowel you. And if Malgus can get himself into that sweet spot of like focused rage and power and determination, then Kyle is going to be in a really bad spot. But
Yeah,
if Malgus is too
especially in an
concerned,
arena that has that much to hurt somebody with, like, again, myriad X-wings all over the place, and supply crates. There's a lot there that can make this situation interesting.
yeah,
To say the least. And I think you're right. I do think eventually Malgus hits that breaking point where he's throwing everything he has at Kyle, and that's kind of where Malgus is at his prime. And that, like I said, that really weird dichotomy where Kyle can mess up the two middle quadrants, but incredibly deceptive and incredibly overbearing are hard for him. And now it's both at once.
yeah. I would say the best version of this battle for Kyle is Malgus comes in cocky like he always does, and Kyle kind of keeps him there without like making Malgus feel like he's already doing well, so that he doesn't get angry and doesn't want to end the fight immediately. I think if that's a big question if though, and Kyle has a lot of toys to play with, but the more toys he uses, the more agitated Malgus is going to get, and the more he's going to be like, just fight me. Like, not like quit messing around, quit like put your blaster away. It's not going to work. Just fight me already. And I think the best shot for Kyle is getting Malgus to stay cocky and stay in that perception of being on top.
And unfortunately, I think the second Kyle has his opening salvo against Malgus, and Malgus goes, "Oh my God, like you can fight somebody as big and strong as I am, and you can use the Force just as well, if not better than I can." That's the moment Malgus realizes, oh, this isn't just some tiny old dude.
Mm.
So, and that's where he kind of kicks it into second gear.
Yeah.
So, Spencer, I'll let you say it.
I don't feel like it.
You don't want to say it?
Today, Master Wayne, I don't want to. because it's just, man, this is a mentally exhausting battle. I just I'm beat. It was a lot to take into consideration, and it's like two of the most evenly matched people we've ever brought on for a versus series show, and I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, well, thank God we got the cop out with Vader and Grievous.
Oh yeah, we would have been at it for hours trying to figure that one out.
Well, with that, if you don't want to do it, I'll say it. With that, we will declare this month's victor, Darth Malgus. And funny enough, here just in time to introduce it. Hey, Levi, you want to tell everybody what next month's match is? The one you pitched.
Really?
Yeah, we're going with it.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hi. It's Levi. You might know me from those Knights of the Nerd Republic and the other one. So
The other one.
Campus Life. That's it. Yeah, next month's fight, everyone, is a thematical. We got a returner. We got the Grand Inquisitor. I don't know why I put my hand on your shoulder.
It's reassuring.
Legends canon, or I guess just Legends. Executor Cedrus. Woo!
Ooh.
You might know him from that 1.5 pages he had in the Star Wars character almanac.
Mm.
Yes.
So yeah, there you go.
Levi came up with this matchup because the day before we filmed this, I was bitching to him that I could not think of anything for April. because I have really cool matchup ideas, but are too research heavy to try to do while Spencer's at school. So Levi just kind of off the top of the dome went Centrist versus the Inquisitor, and I went, that's genius, yes. So tune in next month for that. In the meantime, Spencer, where can the lovely people find you, sir?
The lovely people can find me in the library at Grove City College doing hours upon hours of research for my senior paper. I'm just kidding. You guys can find me on Instagram at SpenceMan Cosplay and on Twitter at SpenceMan49. Thank you all, especially those of you who are hearing this as soon as it comes out, for subscribing to our Patreon page. And we hope that you will consider getting some TNAP merch to put on for the next month's episode when it comes out. Jared, where can the lovely people find you, sir?
The lovely people can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552, and they can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and on our website, www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, and normally I wouldn't do the Patreon ad read. However, I have a sneaking suspicion this one is going to end up in the main feed because I know for a fact there's going to be a Saturday at the end of March of which we're not able to record. So I'm just going to get ahead of that and say this probably ends up in the main feed. So if you're hearing this for the first time on our main feed, go check out the Patreon where you get one of these a month on top of a bunch of other Patreon exclusive shows like Heroic History 101 and the audio commentaries for Nerd Academy Movie Club. Thank you to our $10 patrons, the Waffle Wizard, Case and Breon, Delta 9, and Zach Knaus. You guys help us make the content we love to produce. Like Spencer said, go ahead and check out the TeePublic page, which is linked to the student store on our website. Follow Levi at Professor Levi on Twitter, where there are adorable pictures of him holding an adorable baby. And that shit was fire, and it made my heart warm. With that, thank you all so very much for watching. We will see you guys next time in the fighting pit.